James Palmer from NFL Network joins me virtually here inside the TCO studio. And James, Vikings, Eagles, Thursday Night Football on Prime Video. And this is a Vikings team looking to get back in the win column, an Eagles team that's looking to find another decisive win. But before we talk this upcoming matchup, you and Steve Weish, you guys have a new show, the NFL Report, on the NFL app. Can you talk about what that is and how you guys kind of got in that situation of being able to collaborate on such a great thing?
Yeah, Gabe, I've known Steve, and I know you think the world of Steve. I don't know who doesn't, honestly. I've known him since I was a producer in Atlanta, and he used to come on my show as a guest, and I was covering like the SEC. I mean, this is 12 years ago, 13 years ago, and then, you know, for the last almost 10 years, we've been working at NFL Network together, and we always wanted to do something with one another. We always are on the phone talking ball all week long. You know who I talked to today? They told me blank and blank. You know who I talked to today? They told me this. And we're like, we should do something with this, right? We should take kind of fans behind the scenes and pull back the curtain on the league, kind of what we do, what happens behind the scenes, what are the real conversations, you know, that go on around the league. And it's not like breaking news, but it's telling great stories that allow fans to kind of, you know, get, you know, in these buildings and know what goes on in these facilities, in these locker rooms. And we have just unreal guests. We have Thomas Brown coming on this week on Thursday to talk about Bryce Young and everything. You know, he's working with him as the offensive coordinator. Jason Kelsey coming up. You know, we've had DeMarcus Ware on our first show. Just super cool guests to talk really good football. Use the rest of the experts and the analysts at NFL Network as well. The cool part is it's on like the FAST channel, right? Tubi, Roku, all that stuff on Mondays and Thursdays. It's also a podcast, so you can take us wherever you'd like with the NFL Report and watch us on the go or listen to us on the go. It's been a blast, man. Steve is the absolute greatest. I still learn so much from him as a journalist, and it's just been super fun to kind of tell fans what's going on out there in the league and kind of maybe some of the stories that they should be following that maybe we're not talking about.
Like yourself, Steve is a consummate pro, and one thing that he will not mention is Steve is a low-key diehard Minnesota Vikings fan, being from Minneapolis.
Did you see the jersey he just got?
I saw that.
From the team? Oh, my God. He had it on our Monday show sitting on his chair behind him. He was so stoked. White on the back. Oh, he was fired up.
Yeah, those classic jerseys. I wish they would have resulted in a win for this Minnesota Vikings team, but it pretty much came down to the turnovers. The Vikings had 3 turnovers to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, lost by 3 points. This Eagles team, their defense forced 2 turnovers, won by 5 points against the New England Patriots. So when you look at these two teams facing, the Eagles and Vikings on Thursday Night Football, what storylines are you following?
Yeah, we can start with the turnovers, and turnovers are so funny and fickle in a sense. I remember when I was a beat reporter in Houston before NFL Network, in back-to-back seasons under Gary Kubiak, and literally the exact same roster, they, as a defense, led the NFL in forced turnovers, and the next season forced the fewest turnovers. Like, turnovers are a bit wild in a sense in how they operate, but you're right. You got to protect the football, and that's a big thing. With an accurate quarterback like Kirk Cousins, you usually expect to happen. And with the Eagles, we know it's an opportunistic defense. You mentioned they forced 2 turnovers. One of them was a pick 6 by Slay, who ends up, that ends up being a huge aspect of the game, considering the offense could not get into the end zone and settled for multiple field goals. So I do think in a hostile environment like the Link has been, I was at this game last year in week 2 when the Vikings came to town. And so I do think that'll play a part in Philly coming back home, Philly actually not playing the way they wanted to play in New England. We can get to that. But turnovers are an aspect that you got to keep an eye on. And it was uncharacteristic, the Jalen Hurts late fumble that really could have cost them the game. And their defense came and stepped up late to get another stop, which they had to do. That wasn't something we usually see from Philly. There are maybe going to be some chances for Minnesota to get a turnover or 2.
Yeah, and there are so many correlations. You being at Gillette Stadium for that New England Eagles game, and just knowing that Brian Flores kind of flourished in that Bill Belichick defense, that Bill Belichick tree. How do you stop a offense in the Philadelphia Eagles that just seems like they just make the game of football simple?
They do, because what do they have? They just got dudes everywhere, right, Gabe? They're just more talented than most defenses they go against if you look at position by position across the field. And we know it's a copycat league. I guarantee everybody is looking at what Bill Belichick went out and did against this Eagles offense, because I know also everybody had this entire offseason to go and evaluate. I have coaches that were position coaches across the league that, I talked to them in the offseason. They're like, yeah, my job was to study this Eagles offense, like ad nauseum, to see what they do well. And there is an offseason for teams to have a better idea of how to stop this attack that is kind of unique in the RPO game. You got to account for Jalen Hurts' legs. They also obviously have two great receivers, a really dominant tight end. But the Patriots found a way.
Yeah.
And I think getting pressure on Jalen Hurts was maybe something that was a little bit surprising. Now, that's a really good defensive front that the Patriots have. And the Eagles had a ton of respect for New England after the game, talking to guys on that side of the ball. Jalen Hurts was under some pressure, and they were able to move him off his spot and make him uncomfortable. You saw that have an impact in this offense, right? So if the Vikings are able to do that, I think that's going to be something that could alter this game the same way that the New England Patriots were able to do it. Cam Jurgens is the only new guy on that offensive line coming in at that guard spot. And he's a little bit undersized the same way Jason Kelce is. He's essentially Jason Kelce's replacement when he ever decides to retire at 50 or whatever it is. I don't know. So they're a little light in the middle of that offensive line, and it looked like that was something the Patriots took advantage of.
Yeah, and on top of that, just the Patriots defense, there's only, one or two first-rounders on that starting defense, and the fact that they continue to found ways to get to Jalen Hurts, I'm sure Brian Flores is watching that. But moving to the offensive side of the ball, this is a top 10 offense in Minnesota here with Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, T.J. Hockenson. You know I can keep going on and on and on.
Go keep going, yeah.
But you got the number one pass defense a year ago in the Philadelphia Eagles. How do the Vikings balance that attack and try to be successful against this Philly defense?
Well, we look at it, right, game, we're like, well, everybody knows Justin's getting the ball.
Yep.
What do you do in week one? There's another 150-yard game. Like, even though everybody knows he's getting the football, these are good corners. Like we mentioned Slay already. Bradbury, we'll see. He's in the concussion protocol. This is a Thursday game. So in the secondary, I think Eagles could be a little light. They had a walkthrough Monday. Reed Blankenship, their starting safety, had a rib issue. He didn't practice. I think what you saw, and this is how I would attack him, because this is what I don't want to sound like a genius, but this is what I was predicting heading into the game, and this is what Bill Belichick and the Patriots did, is attack Philly down the middle of the field. Now, they have two really good tight ends in Gesicki and Hunter Henry, but you saw them find a lot of success down the middle of the field because that's where the Eagles are probably the most inexperienced and the thinnest in terms of middle linebacker, where Nakobe Dean also left this game with a foot issue, and he's expected not to play in this game. I mentioned Reed Blankenship. The other safety is kind of like a rotating spot, and you saw both tight ends have a lot of success. I would look at Oliver. I would look at T.J. Hockenson attacking the middle of this defense, because that's where Philly appears to be vulnerable when you have a stud corner in Slay. Obviously, you got to give extra attention to Justin Jefferson as well. Then you can find other ways to attack the middle of the field. That's what I would do. The problem is, do you have enough time to get those passes off with Philly's front? We'll see.
3 seconds. That's all we ask. 3 seconds. Give Kirk Cousins 3 seconds against his defense. I believe it'll be a successful day for him. But my last question for you is just understanding that this is going to be a huge game. I mean, from both sides of the spectrum. How do the Vikings bounce back?
You got to stop that Philly front. I mean, that's really this offensive line and running the football. And running the football is a big thing that Kevin O'Connell said this offseason multiple times, right? It was we want to be able to run the football better. They weren't able to do it. I know Vita Vea is a great player. You know who else showed us he's a great player? Jalen Carter in this first game. I mean, he was incredible blowing up the middle of that Patriots offensive line. And we'll see, Garrett Bradbury back. We'll see. That interior part of the defensive line is so good for Philly and so deep. Now, Fletcher Cox is a little banged up. He had some rib issues. He was really uncomfortable in the locker room after that game in Foxborough. But Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, if you can contain that and you can establish some sort of run game, that's what I think the Vikings have to do to come out on top, because then you have the ability to try to keep Philly honest. And if you can run the football, then you can throw the football better. But that's going to be tough sledding against this defensive front. And the way we saw this offensive line for the Vikings play, they need to play better in week 2 for sure.
Thursday is going to be a big, big night, not only because the Vikings and Eagles play, but because there's going to be another episode of the NFL Report with James Palmer and Steve Weish.
That's right, Gabe. That's right.
Appreciate you joining us,
subscribe.
James.
Click the link button to subscribe, right? Is that what they say on YouTube?
Right below. Appreciate you, James.
Right below. Go ahead. You got it, man.